All right, everybody. So this is the Foul Ball Podcast post-game coverage of the Elon University Phoenix football team against the one and only Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs. So the third and fourth quarter, essentially the second half, also known as the part of the game that occurred after halftime. It was a success because really the second quarter for Elon was looking a little rough around the edges in the sense that everything they built up in the first quarter essentially fell apart in the second. And so therefore they really needed something to build upon when it comes to building up confidence, building up courage, and really gaining that momentum that they really kind of lost in the second quarter. And so that's what they did, right? So at the end of the second half, at the end of the first half rather, they were down 20-24 after being ahead 20-3. And so Elon got the ball back at the second half of the game. So at the beginning of the third quarter, they got the ball back and they blew it. So they marched all the way down the field, kicked a field goal, and they missed it by hitting the left part of the post. So they kicked it up, hit the left right, and just didn't get it in. And so GW, Gardner-Webb, they got the ball back, and then thankfully they fumbled it. We recovered it, and then Elon was able to take control of the offense again and really gain momentum. And this is really where it happened, was basically towards the end of the third quarter with 5 minutes and 19 seconds left. Elon threw a 27-yard touchdown in order to regain a lead, 27-24. And so afterwards, when Elon kicked it back to Gardner-Webb, we forced them to punt because that's when the defense really gained their momentum too. So it was nice to see that both sides of the ball for Elon were able to kind of gain their confidence back essentially simultaneously. So they punted, we got the ball back, and then they punted, we punted, they punted again. So 3 punts in a row. And then once we got the ball back, we ran the clock out for the remainder of the third quarter. And so from there, we went into the fourth quarter. And this is where things got interesting. So stay on board with me for a few minutes if you can spare the time. Because this is where the story, like I just said, gets interesting. Because from there, we went on in, we kicked a field goal, we made the score 30-24 with 13 minutes and 4 seconds left. And you thought the defense was good in the third quarter. Well, if you didn't see the fourth quarter, here it is. Because we forced them to punt, then we had a 30-yard pass, then we had a 14-yard run, so there's 44 yards right there. And then guess what? We missed another field goal, and that's another field goal where it hit the upright. It hit the upright again. And so we gave them the ball back after that failed field goal attempt, the brutal one. Okay. They had a series of plays that set them back between kind of penalties and sacks because our defense, again, like I said, they really ramped things up in the fourth quarter. Decided to give us a good show because our special teams missed the field goals and our offense didn't really do much other than the 30-yard pass, the 14-yard run, the touchdown that we had prior to that run and everything, And so they threw the ball, like Gardner-Webb threw the ball. They made it 4th and 1 after like the sacks and the penalties and everything. And they went for it. I mean, that was a good decision. That's a 4th and 1 that you have to go for, especially at this point in the game when you're down by literally a possession. And I'll circle back to that in a second. The possession, down by possession. That should ring a bell from our pregame coverage. But anyway, let's just talk about that for a second, actually, because in our pregame coverage, we talked about how they referring to Gardner-Webb, have lost multiple games that's decided by a possession. And guess what? Let's continue the story with losing games down by a possession. Keep that in mind, all right? Because if you want to see what I'm reading, actually, I've got all the notes from the game literally right here. It's really small writing, really small. I'm struggling to read it right now. But you know what? We're going through it because it was such a great fourth quarter. Again, with the down by a possession in mind. So we went through it. 4th and 1. They didn't get it. Turned the ball over. The next possession for Elon was brutal because we had a few false starts and then we fumbled the ball. But you know what? We made up for it on defense because we had 3 sacks and then they punted the football. And then the next possession, again, 2 false starts. We had over 70 yards and probably just multiple like holding calls, multiple false start calls. It was just holds and false starts. Over 70 yards of it. That needs to change. Essentially, that really needs to change. So we had 2 false starts. We had a few false starts, and then we had to punt the ball. And then the very last play of the game, it was the weirdest thing. Last play of the game that Gardner-Webb had, they threw it for a first down. They got a lot of yards, like after the pass, the run, and everything. And then they kept throwing it back, and the ball just kept bouncing. They picked it up. And then after that, they picked up the ball a couple times from the ground. They ran it in, and then kept throwing it back again. And then it eventually got to a point where it bounced off so many helmets that we intercepted it. We're like, we all looked at each other. We're like, how are we going to explain that? Number one. Number two, how are we going to score that? 3, why didn't you just go up to the spot where you had the ball, spike it, and then stop the clock and then keep going? I don't even know that's a rule in college, but if it is, then why didn't they do it? And so Elon won the game 32-24 against the Gardner-Webb running Bulldogs. Some side notes, just to kind of wrap things up here. Elon had a whole total of 510 yards, where Gardner-Webb had 272, which is a major difference from last week when Gardner-Webb had over 400 and set a school record. So we set a school record actually tonight because we actually hit a 52-yard field goal, if I hadn't mentioned that already. So we hit a 52-yard field goal tonight, which is a very long field goal, and guess what? We made it. It didn't hit any uprights this time, or that time. And so just kind of overview, right? The team who controls the ball the best on offense gives the confidence, the defense as well, and ultimately that's the team that's going to win, and that's what happened tonight. We had a significant amount of time where we controlled the ball on offense, which is huge. And obviously, I think I made this very clear. Penalties. We need to watch out for the penalties. We need to clean that up significantly because you know what? I think if we didn't get as many penalties and that are therefore equates to yardage, if we didn't get that many penalty yardages, we wouldn't have had maybe a back and forth game. Just going to throw that out there. I think it would have been much easier to win ultimately at the very end. So that just goes without saying. So the Elon University Phoenix football team is now 2-1, and we're on the road next week. So we'll do kind of live coverages from home, and we'll see how they do on the road. Hopefully they can extend it to maybe 3-1. That'd be nice. But without further ado,